And we talked to your sister, and we know that your grandfather was one of the owners of the place.
Correct.
And do you have a memory of Bill, Henry?
Oh, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about him?
Well, Grandpa was one of those guys that was always old. Okay? And I think he died when he was 73 or something like that. He died in 1951, and he owned the house with his sister, Lillian Stewart, and she died almost at the same time. So we had two deaths real quick, and I was there when they both died. So that's it.
So you spent time there.
Grandpa was a kind-hearted person. He would tell you if you went to his house, the stream was the main attraction. Everybody wanted to fish and hunt. So we had people that we were friends with all through my young years. I thought they were part of the family, but they weren't. They had come there either to go fishing or hunting, and they would ask Grandpa, you know, could I stay in your barn? And he said, no, nobody stays in the barn. You know, you can stay in the house.
Wow.
So his house was very open. I'll tell you one little story about him.
Sure.
And I don't remember this, so it may have been before I was of remembering ages, but a tramp got off the train, got off that railroad track, and that often happened. You know, the train would stop and they would go see what they could scrounge up in for a while. But anyway, it was Christmas Eve, and this tramp came to the door and wanted to know if he could sleep in the barn, and my grandfather said, absolutely not. We don't allow anybody to sleep in our barn. It could burn it down or whatever. He said, but you can stay in the house. So they let him in, and he had Christmas with our family.
Well, now there's being a Christian soul.
Yeah, my mother told the story about it. They didn't have a gift for him because everybody was getting gifts, and somebody thought quick, well, I got a new pair of gloves, and they gave them to him, and they said he actually cried
Wow.
when he got to, and then they kept track of him for a couple of years, and then they lost him.
Yeah.
So
when you can close your eyes and, you know, you kind of walk in the facility, you know, can you kind of describe walking through the house?
walking through the house, well, we always used probably what the Jacksons would think of as the back of the house. We came in through the woodshed and into the kitchen, and then from there you went to the other rooms. And that was, we actually came in, you've probably got pictures where you see a barn in the background, so it was on that side that we always came in. We rarely had the front doors open that faced the broken straw.
Was there a reason that, I mean, actually, that's the front of the house, is the broken straw. Was there a patio? Was there anything where nothing, you just sort of walked out and you had a hill?
A huge stone, if you go there today, the huge stone is still there.
Right.
That's all there was. That's it.
So it's just really a vista, a view.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can remember there's pine trees there today, but I can remember when they were 2 or 3 inches through them.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that's how it is.
So you would have spent time being with your grandparents and family members there. And what was a normal day like there? Was it just you kind of hung around? Did you go fishing? Did you go swimming? Did you do all those things?
Well, I had a mother that was scared to death of the water, so she did not allow us to swim in the broken straw.
Got it. Pretty fast stream.
You know, it was okay. If we ever went in the water, we went up on Spring Creek.
Okay.
You know, we went over toward the Clough Farm, and there was a place back in there. And you have to remember that the stream, the broken straw, was polluted in many cases from the tannery and quarry.
Yeah.
And they would have a massive fish kill, okay? So that's why we weren't allowed to be in that water plant around. But then after we got older, you know, we weren't quite so easy to keep track of them. We probably were in there a little.
The barn itself, can you describe that? Kind of what was it a hay farm? Was there, I assume there was no cattle there, was there?
Oh yeah.
Was there cattle?
Yeah, Grant probably had, he probably milked 10 or 15 cows.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they put the milk in 10-gallon cans and put them in a vat, which you can still see. It's still there.
Okay.
It's on the side towards the house. And then the next morning they would take it up to Spring Creek and sell it to Abbott's. And that's,
It's all part of your world now. That's where he was the milk guy.
yeah, and then it went into the tank car, and when the flyer came, that was the passenger train. It picked up one tank of milk and took it off somewhere. I don't know where they took it. Harrisburg probably, I don't know.
So where was the train station? Where was the station itself in Spring Creek?
Right where if you left 426 and came down a slight grade and then you crossed the tracks, it was right there on the right, just before you cross the tracks.
Got it. Okay.
That was the train station, yeah.
So I understand you actually sketched out the house at some point.
Well, I haven't done it. When you or whoever was getting ready for the dig, they had everything mowed very nicely, and I got with Sean there on the farm, you know, the guy that's a manager of the place, and he let me go in there. And so my wife and I went in and we measured all the foundation.
Really?
Okay. And that was what I needed.
Yeah.
I needed to know the size of the house and take the pictures, which you already have the pictures, and scaled from one to that. And, you know, well, I started out strong, you know, and started figuring it out. And there's some things I figured out about the house.
Yeah.
One of the things I figured out is all windows in the house were the same size.
Ah.
One size window fits them all. And also the doors were quite narrow, 30, 32 inches somewhere, that was it. So, you know, today we wouldn't do that, but
10-foot ceilings?
what's that?
10-foot ceilings? 10-foot ceilings?
No, those ceilings were not that. If you look at the photographs, you can almost guess if you put a floor joist in between the downstairs windows and the upstairs windows, they couldn't be very high. And I'm going to say they were only about 8 feet. They weren't high.
Unusual for
Yeah,
those days.
it was.
You get a sense when the house was built? Did you get a date for that?
I have no idea.
There is here an atlas that I brought in. It's an 1878 atlas of Erie County, well, Warren County.
Warren County.
Excuse me. And it shows the Jackson homestead in 1878 and a house on broken straw. I mean, it's got to be it, I would think.
Yeah.
So just a sense, 1878 at least, when that was done.
Yep.
It shows, John, did you look at that atlas?
No.
We'll go ahead and look at it, but it shows what we know is 426 today. Coming down, it goes across onto Higher Road because it didn't go straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that was where the state road went, was down past the golf course.
Yeah. As far as stories you have there that are unique that we would find interesting, being there at the site. We don't have a chance to talk to many people who actually lived there when in fact it was active. We have a couple of people who lived there when they weren't supposed to be there. You know, after the fact that it had been abandoned, they just sort of showed up.
Yeah.
But you actually legitimately were there.
Yeah. We lived in Spring Creek, and so we were handy to the place, and we lived there quite a bit for when they were getting old.
Yeah.
There was 3 sisters, and so we took turns, and our shift was through the week. The other ones could get there on a weekend. At least they relieved us a little.
Running water, was it from the well? We saw the well is sort of a little bit off-site from the the actual foundation, it wasn't a pump well, it was just,
No,
No.
there was, any time that I can remember, it was awful tasting water, okay? As it is all along the Broken Straw. If you don't go very deep, you get sulfur and
Sulfur,
iron,
yeah.
yeah. And that one qualified for both of them.
it's a great smell, great smell.
Yeah, and it would stain anything, you know, it was, but we lived on it, and I guess we didn't know any better. We drank it and called it good.
Did you play in the hayloft? Were you permitted to play in the barn?
Oh, yeah.
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 I mean, that's such an attractive nuisance for kids.
See, in any of the pictures that you might see, they might not add up if you looked at the barn, because my grandfather added on to that barn, the full length of it. But I'm thinking he only added on maybe, and you probably could tell if you went and looked at the foundation again. I don't know when I went there and looked at it if I paid attention to that, but I would say he only added on maybe 10 or 12 feet. It wasn't that much, but it was
Towards the end, towards the back, towards the field.
This would be toward, yeah,
The back.
not, well, let's see, sort of toward the bridge,
Ah,
okay?
okay. At the time the Henrys there, could you drive across the bridge?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know any better. Yeah, I was probably one of the last people to go that way.
The car.
Yeah.
When would that have been?
Oh, we drove across that, I don't know, in the late 60s. They were still driving across it. Yeah. My Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Dick, and they had one son, Tom, which you may have talked to him. He recently died, but they left there in 1964. So that's the last time anybody actively lived there.
Then it was owned by I think the Mortons bought it next.
The Morton inherited
Or
it,
inherited, okay.
yeah.
And then it was sold to Frost, Jack Frost.
Right. Ted Faust got the,
Ted Faust.
yeah, he had big ideas and no money. So they didn't
You know,
get,
Ted just died.
I did interview him. I'll tell you that in a second. So tell me about Ted Faust. F-A-U-S-T, I believe.
yeah. Is he still living, Tom?
No, he died last
He did?
year.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's in Youngsville. He was in Youngsville. Yep.
Off of
Well,
Randy McKinney. You know Randy, I ski with.
the only thing
Off of Randy in his last days.
I really know about Ted is my wife worked with Ted at Peak and Peak.
Ah,
And so we were invited to Ted's house from time to time. And I don't know what it was, one of his late birthdays or maybe when he retired or whatever. But I remember going to his milk house where he brewed all of his different wines. And I mean, you got to try this one, you got to try that one. And, you know, by the time I got out of there, I was starting to feel it a little bit. So he had some good stuff. He was a good winemaker.
and where would that be? At that location, Spring Creek?
No, that was at,
Wrightsville.
yeah, it's a Wrightsville address, and it's right by Kidder's Pond.
Okay. Well, Ted, as he told me, they bought it with an eye towards the ski resort in the back there, was it Jackson Hill?
Yeah.
And then he leased it for a while. And it's during that time where the cockfights occurred that created a lot of publicity and got him involved.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that because right about then I went in and served in the Army.
Okay.
65 to 67 I was gone, so that there may have been some. I do remember at the church some comment was made that they were going to the haunted house, and my mother really took offense to that.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing haunted about that house, and don't forget it.
So, John, you've been back there since the folks at Mercyhurst have been working on that. Have you been back to the homestead?
I was
Foundations?
I was there when they had trimmed everything.
Okay,
So,
yep,
so it made measuring, and I knew they had done that, so I got with Sean and said, hey, I just want to go there for an hour or so
Perfect.
and get some dimensions and, you know, try to make some sense out of it. Since I was probably, you know, my sister can remember some things, my cousin can remember some things, but was the room 10 feet wide, was the room 100 feet long, you know, they come disconnected there, you know, so I pretty much know the size of the rooms if I really took the information and sat down and refined it.
Well, you'll probably get a call if you haven't from Mercyhurst, John. They're now into that. They're into that because they're finding stuff, and they just kind of want to. Obviously, if you're going to do an archaeological dig, you like to know what the building. We have pictures, but that doesn't give you dimension, you know.
Yeah.
So you're the only guy. Don't feel any pressure, John, but continue to stay healthy, okay?
Yeah, I will.
When you've been an engineer all your life, I'll tell you what, the detail is infinite.
Yeah.
To me, the devil is in the detail. God bless you.
Yeah.
That's so.
John is a little side story to what I was telling your other gal here with the Mercyhurst today is John is a relative to the Tubbs family. And
Right.
we were talking about the Thomas Tubbs memoirs, that Thomas Tubbs was indentured to a Dan Corbett on Sample Flats over here as a small kid. I'm going to guess, my memory, maybe 10 years old. The mother died, the father had 2 or 3, 4 kids, couldn't take care of them, nothing, and it was terrible. He had to go to work. He gave the kids to people to raise them for their work. Corbett kept him 3 or 4 years of longer than his indentured time because he lied to him, and he was a devil of a guy that work abused the kid, and he finally realized what and left. But the Thomas Tubbs memoirs, you probably got a copy.
I don't know
They
if I do
are
or not.
incredible of what people did floating. Now the story about the first woman buried in the Spring Creek Cemetery was floated down in a canoe. Before that cemetery, they floated a woman to Garland, they talked about in another thing I read, to find a cemetery to bury her in.
Wow.
Well, there was supposed to have been a cemetery across the road,
Yeah,
but I don't know anything about it.
yeah.
You know, just
You're a fount of knowledge. This is fantastic. Been great. Thanks, John. And I'm sure Mercyhurst will be in touch with you.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep.